Hello, YouTube. This is Mahadev, the Thunder Wizard. So, I am perturbed. That's not even the right word. I'm angry. I'm not going to let it ruin my life. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I've got other things to do, but it angers me. It infuriates me. Big surprise, right? Something infuriates me. It infuriates me. Victim mentalities infuriate me. You want to know why? Because they're dangerous. I haven't talked about this a lot because, people go through whatever they go through and people got to live whatever they got to live through in life. And, I had victim mentality in my life and a lot of people do, and it's just part of being human. It's just one of the things that a lot of people have that they got to work through in life. But it infuriates me when people's need to indulge in their self-destructive mindsets and lifestyles, when their need to indulge in that actually has the power to harm other people, then I start to get angry. And I'm angry right now. Like I said, I don't let it ruin my life. I'm going to get up and go surfing in the morning. And, when I've got nothing better to do, I'll sit around and I'll talk about it. And I'm going to do it now. I'm going to talk about it and then I'm going to move on. But it does anger me. I have a hard time with people that are so wrapped up in themselves and so wrapped up in their own selfish need to experience whatever their masturbatory, self-referential, narcissistic viewpoint and feeling, when that is more important to them than what actually is happening and what is actually, how that affects other people. When they're more interested in having their own internal masturbatory experience, then I start to get angry because that's just downright selfish and it can be really destructive. And I've said it before, but, calling this COVID-19 pandemic a hoax, if you're wrong, is extremely destructive. Because if you're wrong, that means that it's not a hoax, and it means there are people who are dying, and that by not addressing this and doing what we can to eradicate it, that means more people can unnecessarily die and get sick. Now, that's just assuming that it's just a virus, just a new form of virus that's been released into the world. But if you saw my last video saying that this is not a virus or a hoax, but it's actually a bioweapon. So let me explain to you what a bioweapon is. In this case, we're talking about somebody who's been studying viruses and has found the most and weaponized a virus and made it even more dangerous than normal. Specifically in what ways? In the ways that I heard, which I don't know are true. It's interesting and I would like to find out more information, but I don't know. But it's enough that it's got because the evidence is compelling and the way it was presented was compelling enough to me that I think it's worth pursuing, which is that this isn't just a virus that escaped from some wet market, but it was actually an existing virus that was under experimentation and then was weaponized and then consciously released into the world. And it was released in the world for internal political reasons, and then it got out of hand and now it's all over the world. But this, I used to think that this COVID-19 was just like the flu and who gave a crap, that, it's just like, another flu virus. And I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. And more people are dying from it than die from the normal flu. And it is more contagious. Number one, because it's a new pathogen that we don't have any herd immunity to. We have a herd immunity to flus and colds. So, the flu can come through and not a whole, not as nearly as many people will get it because a lot of people are already immune to it. But if it's a new virus, we don't have any immunity to it. So that combined with the fact that it is more contagious, it is more contagious than just the flu. So we've got two things. More people are dying from it than from the flu, and it is more contagious. So it's a real threat, if it's true. Now, if you don't want to believe that it's true, fine. Why don't you want to prove one way or another? You should want to know. You should want to know. Let me give you an example. You've got a kid in preschool, and somebody says, we need to shut the preschool down because there is carbon monoxide leaking, and we need to get all the kids out so that we can make sure that there isn't any deadly gas. Now, you don't have to be proven whether or not there is a carbon monoxide leak. You're going to say, yeah, let's get the kids out of school for a couple hours, or just take them home for the day, and let's go in there and test and find out if there is carbon monoxide leaking. And if there is, then let's fix it so that we don't have kids getting sick and dying. That is a situation where you have a possibility that something might be going wrong, but you better figure it out, because if you don't, somebody's going to get hurt. Now imagine somebody saying, well, I just think that I don't think that's real. I think we should just leave our kids in there. There's no reason to do anything about it. You'd be like, hey, fuck you, man. That's my kid. I don't care if it's real or not. I'm going to take my kid out until I know what's going on. I'll give you another example. You're in the army and you're fighting a battle, and you get intelligence, or somebody comes to you and says, hey, there's intelligence that the enemy is massing on the border for an attack, and we don't have the resources to fight this off. We will lose this battle unless we do this, 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 and this. And then what if, somebody said, I just don't think that it's a real problem. You'd be like, no, let's verify the evidence. Let's pull back until we know for sure. We've got a real situation here, people. This isn't just a rumor. We know that people are dying all over the world. And even when I've said to people, it's really angering me that people are saying that it's a hoax. And I said, people are dying, and somebody says, yeah, people are dying, but it's not from the virus. But they don't say what it is. Why don't you want to know? You and I both agree people are dying. Let's figure out why. No, you just want to hold on to any excuse to buy into a conspiracy theory. Whether it's true or not, you just want to have the right to have your feeling. And that's what's bothering me. There are people who just want to have the right to have their feeling as opposed to the truth. I acknowledged this in one of the Q&As where somebody said, well, I just feel that, and I got upset and I said, who gives a shit what you feel? Your feeling is not what's important here. What's important here is that people's lives are potentially at stake. Let's figure it out. Let's not just sit back and just, I feel this, I feel that, like everything is arbitrary. And that's what's bothering me. This is coming from successive generations of people who've grown up with devices and internet and don't know the difference between something that's unreal and something that's real, because the internet is not real. And if you've lived your whole life on the internet, then you don't know how to find out the truth about things. You only know that you're swamped with information, and if you're uneducated, you haven't gone to college, you haven't figured out, you haven't taken any science classes, because in science you learn how to do experiments and figure things out. If you don't know how to do any of those things, then all you know is that somebody's throwing information at you and you don't have the ability to know whether something's true or not. That's not my problem. Your ignorance and inability to figure things out could potentially get me and other people killed, and that's not okay with me. And the fact that you want to hold on to your ignorance and you want to protect it, and you want to just have a feeling and make all of your decisions based on your feelings as opposed to the facts, that angers me. You're standing between me and my freedom, and that's a problem. So I'm going to share with you, a response from my latest video, which I think I pulled up the picture for, this one. No, not that one, this one. Which, I make the argument that this could potentially not only be a real virus, but it could be a bioweapon. And therefore, it's really important that we figure out if it's a hoax or not. And just saying it's a hoax for the sake of saying it's a hoax is not okay. You better be able to back that up. Again, you got to have critical thinking. And after that video, this person says, still seems like a huge hoax. Now that infuriated me because they didn't have any evidence to back it up. And this person is focusing on their feelings. So even though I think I made a pretty compelling argument, I didn't prove it, I didn't say I was proving it, but I made a pretty compelling argument that this needs to be investigated. And it's not good enough to just say you think it's a hoax. This person, even after that, says, still seems like a huge hoax. That tells me that that's his feeling. He just wants to hold on to it. Doesn't have any way to back it up. And he's going to prove that he not only doesn't have any way to back up that it's a hoax, but that he can't even figure anything out. He doesn't have the ability to know how to figure out any information. And that's okay with him. And he wants to hold on to that. He wants to defend his ignorance and his inability to figure out the truth, even if that means it could be dangerous to other people. Now, those are my words, but I'm going to prove it to you. So he says, still seems like a huge hoax. I responded and I said, so let me see if I get you. It still seems like is something somebody says when they're shown proof of something that they don't want to believe. Then they say, well, it still seems like. So you're saying that it's more important for you to stick to a feeling that you want to have instead of actually wanting to know the fucking truth about something. And then I went on, who gives a shit if it seems like a hoax to you? Find out if it actually is a hoax. Otherwise, you could be endangering people. And he responds and he says, why are you getting so angry? There's no definitive proof on either side of the argument, so it's impossible to know for sure. That is false. That is an excuse. That's an excuse to stay ignorant and potentially get people killed. But besides the fact, it's just absolutely false. There is a way to find out for sure. You want to know how to find out for sure? Okay, you live in a place where you don't have a lot of COVID cases. Get in your car and drive somewhere. Drive to a big city and go into the hospital and start talking to people. Okay, you don't want to drive? Get on your phone and start calling people. You can find out. Just try and see if you can find somebody who knows somebody who's been infected. I've done that, and I live in a place where we don't have it a lot, and I don't know anybody out here. And even I was able to do that. So there is a way. You're just too lazy and uninterested to put the effort to find out. So don't pull that crap on me. I'm not even going to sit back and say it's okay for you that you can't figure things out. There is definitive proof, and there is a way to find out which is true and which argument is false. It's not my problem you don't know how to do that. Actually, it is my problem that you don't know how to do that. It's very dangerous of you to not be willing to want to find out the truth about something. Maybe, life after death, you don't want to find out the truth. It's not a big deal. It's not going to change your life. Whether or not there's an actual virus out there that's killing people or a bioweapon that could potentially kill people, change the face of politics all over the world, change your economy, you're not willing to find out about that? It's obviously affecting the world and affecting economies. So you can't say that it doesn't exist. It's affecting you. Why don't you want to figure it out? That really annoys the fuck out of me. Then he goes on to state stuff that he can't back it up. It's stuff that he's seen on his preferred mainstream media. By the way, just because just because you're watching Fox News or InfoWars doesn't mean it's not mainstream media. It doesn't mean that you're getting some sliver of information from the one guy who's getting the truth. No, you're watching mainstream media that's paid for by advertisements, that is huge, that millions of people watch. They have an agenda to cater to an audience and give you kinds of stories that you're going to want to watch. That's as mainstream as it gets. I don't give a shit that you think that it's... That's what I mean. You're so fucking ignorant that you can't even tell the difference between what mainstream media is. So he goes on to say hospitals being empty. What? You saw one video and that means that every single hospital is empty? Horseshit. Tests not being able to distinguish between different coronavirus strains. I don't even know that that's true, but even if that is, so what? So they had a faulty test? So you make one that works. Well, they had one faulty test, so we can't trust anything. You're full of shit. Death certificate stating that COVID-19 is cause of death when it was unrelated, just to inflate numbers. How do I know that that's true? And even if it is, that happened in how many cases? Does that mean it happened in every single case? You're cherry picking for things to defend your right to be ignorant. Mainstream media pumping out non-stop corona negative news. Well, let's think about that for a second. First of all, we already talked about mainstream media, so you just mean the media that you don't watch because it doesn't appeal to you personally. That doesn't mean that it's any more the stuff that's pumped out to you all the time. Non-stop corona negative news. If this is a new virus that potentially could kill, as we already know, hundreds of thousands of people and destroy economies and destroy the balance of power, then why wouldn't you want to have non-stop information about what the fuck is going on? So you just don't like it because it's negative and it's coming at you non-stop? Grow the fuck up. When it was unrelated just to inflate numbers, I don't know that. Mainstream media pumping out nonstop corona, it makes me heavily question. So just because you're getting a lot of information that you perceive to be negative about, and people saying this is a big problem, and just because it comes from something that's not your preferred source of news, which you, by your own admission, you can't tell what definitive proof is because you, like you say, there's no definitive proof on either side, so it's impossible to know for sure, which is absolutely false. We can know. You can't, maybe because you don't know how to think critically and how to determine what is real and what is false news. I can, you can't. Just because you can't doesn't mean it can't be done. So all you're saying is that you're like a little kid, you're hearing a bunch of scary things, and you don't understand it, and you don't know how to figure it out, so you're just going to pretend it doesn't exist. And then here you have a certain brand of media that tells you what you want to hear, that backs up your fear and says, don't worry about it. You're a fucking child. And your ignorance and your fear could get people killed. Because enough people believe that, it's already causing problems in the United States. I see it. I can see it from here. And then he says, if it's real, it's no worse than the flu. That's absolutely false. We know that it is worse than the flu. It's killing more people than the flu. And then he goes on to say, if not, then we've been manipulated and lied to as usual. How the fuck would you know? How do you know you're not being manipulated right now to believe that it's a hoax? You can't tell when you're being manipulated and when you're not. So he loved my interview with so blah, blah, blah. But he says, but it seems recently you think your knowledge is the only truth. I've already told you more times than not that I haven't said that. But I do know when I can tell when somebody is emotionally attached to not knowing the truth because it serves their emotional fears and their emotional needs. So I said, why am I getting so angry? I've already told you why. People are dying. It's obvious that I said the same thing. Why am I getting angry? I said, why? He goes on, and then I go on to say, because he says at the end he goes, it seems recently you think your knowledge is the only truth, but it's all perception. You're saying that the entire universe is arbitrary. And it's not. It's not. If you walk out into the street and get hit by a car and break your leg, that is not just your perception. That is bullshit. That is a cheap, frightened cop-out. Again, why am I so angry? We're not talking about whether or not there's life after death. We're talking about, is there a potentially deadly virus going all over the world that could destroy all kinds of things about life as we know it. Now, he's going to make the argument that I'm too stressed out. I'm allowing myself to get angry, but the truth is I'm not stressed out. I have the ability to know between a lot of information when something's true, when something's not. And I also have the ability to stay connected to myself so that I don't have to be impacted by a lot of that stuff. But it doesn't mean I don't care. And it doesn't mean that I don't think it's important. This guy doesn't want to care, and he wants to think it's not important if it doesn't affect him personally. There's a difference. There's a difference between being able to manifest your reality within an imperfect world and being a complete, a child and choosing not to see the truth because you live behind this glass of perception and you can't tell what's true and what's not. There's a difference between the two of us. You're trying to pretend you're me by saying, he's going to make the argument later that, listen, it's all just a matrix and I just don't buy into the negativity. And what he's really saying is he just doesn't want to deal with it. And that's different. He goes on to say, because I made one of the questions earlier, I said, do you have any idea how many people are dying from this? And he says, according to likely inflated statistics. Again, how do you know they're likely inflated? By your own admission, you can't tell the difference between information. So just because somebody told you it was inflated statistics because they happen to be coming from your source of news, you choose to buy into it. Now, I don't know if I haven't researched these statistics, so I don't know if they're likely or not. But thank you for giving me the statistics. 207,000 people have died. 207,000 people. Can you imagine how many people that is? That's not nothing. Now, we don't even know the people who haven't died. Let's say the people who have gotten it and have gotten well. We won't know for a decade, maybe even decades, if this virus isn't something that stays within you and kills you slowly, like AIDS. There's evidence that if this is a bioweapon, it may have been engineered to act like AIDS. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just telling you some stuff that has been presented to me, which I haven't verified, but you don't know. You don't know, and that's the point. We need to know what this thing is. We need to know. Just to choose not to know because you think it doesn't bother you? Yeah, that angers me. So according to him, 207,000 have died from it overall, yet 153,000 people die every day anyway. Yeah, well, but you're now trying to say that of those 207,000, 153,000, would have died anyway. But that's not what the statistics are saying. By what you've said, 207,000 people have died from the coronavirus. Just because 153,000 people die every day, those are people just dying anyway. So you have to, maybe even put that on top of that. But even if I say that, so that's okay with you? That 207,000 people have died and that's okay? Because people die anyway? Because why? Because you don't think it doesn't affect you personally? That's okay with you? That angers me. Those 207,000 people had mothers, fathers, children, aunts, uncles, relatives, friends, co-workers. Had a huge impact on the lives of people around them. And if any one of them could have survived and not unnecessarily died, and if it was your wife or your father or your kid, I'm pretty damn well sure you would have wanted them to stay alive. So it just shows me how callous and selfish your reasoning is. Then he goes on to say, this matrix is a game. I just choose not to be sucked into the fear and negativity because I don't want to manifest that around me. Yeah, well, if you don't want to be sucked into the fear and negativity, then why, according to you, do you think it's a hoax? Because in order to think it's a hoax, it means you have to believe that there are people above you that you don't know who they are, who have more power than you, who want to steal from you, manipulate you. And you talk about being manipulated numerous times. That comes from believing and believing in negativity and fearing that things can happen to you. That's a definite victim mentality. Somebody who's not a victim says, I'm going to figure this out, and I can figure it out. And if I don't know how to figure it out, I'm going to find out how to figure it out. You don't even want to fucking care. You're the definition of victim. You're in total denial because according to you, it's just nobody can figure anything out anyway, and you don't want to know. And you don't want to hear any nonstop negative, anything negative you don't want to hear. You're not interested if that negativity, we've got this fucking virus that's killing people. You don't want to know if that's true or not. You just don't want to hear something that either bothers you or frightens you or makes you uncomfortable. And I understand, because according to you, you don't have the ability to figure out the truth anyway. So why wouldn't you? But the problem is people like you who have this have a lot of power. Have a lot of power if you get enough people who are uneducated, immature, and childish, and and make these kinds of statements, and that affects laws and affects medical treatment. Then your desire not to give a shit about what's going on can actually have the effect of having people die unnecessarily. And that pisses me off. So yeah, you piss me off. Then he goes on to say, I don't feel like a victim of any conspiracy, which I've already shown is false. I just think there's so many different layers to everything. Okay, so why don't you want to know the different layers? You're using that as an excuse. In other words, you're saying it's just so confusing, there's just no way for us to know. Again, you're putting that same bullshit defense of there's just so many and it's so confusing. And I haven't gone to college and figured out how to differentiate from truth and false. I don't know how to listen to information or research it or be able to figure out the truth, so I'm just not going to worry about it. Well, you want to stay uneducated and not figure things out, that's your choice. But if you think that I'm going to sit by and not say something when you want to have the power to voice your opinion, the only thing that you can say that I would respect is if you said, you know what, I really don't know anything about this. I'm confused. I'm just not going to have an opinion because I just don't know what there is. Instead, you want to have reasoning for that is because there's a lot of information coming and I don't know where it's coming from and I don't trust it, so it makes me question. So I'm just going to err on the side of ignorance and just say it's a hoax. That's a whole lot different from saying, listen, I'm not smart enough to figure out how to interpret information, and I don't know, and to be honest, it's just over my head, so I'm just going to stay out of it and let people who know figure it out. That, if you had said that, then I would have respected you. But your need, because nobody forced you to come onto my channel and make this statement. You just had to. And then you had to defend it. When I confronted you on it, you had to defend it. You just spent that whole time defending your right to be ignorant and frightened. And you're right. I don't know why you're on my channel. If you're not somebody who wants to know the truth and wants to learn how to think critically, then eventually you are going to have to leave, because at some point I'm going to teach something that's going to go against your need to be a frightened, uneducated, ignorant victim. All right, so that's it. I think I've said everything I need to say. Now, I'm going to take a deep breath and relax, and I'm going to go surfing tomorrow. All right, more stuff to come. See you guys later.